All right, grade 7, this is Math 7, 8.3, perpendicular bisectors. It's answer key for page 308, number 3, 4, 5, and 8. So question 3 says to draw a line that is 4 centimeters long. I drew it a little too far, so start at the 0, go to 4. Let's move this down a bit. Okay, there we go. And I'd expect it to be half of that. That's where the bisector would be. Bisectors have to go through at the halfway point. So it says to use our ruler to do it. So simply we just line up the ends of our, the sides of our rulers, the edges to there, and then draw a line through, draw a line through. And then we flip to the other side, just flip it the other way. Get it lined up with the ends of the ruler. Draw through, draw through. And where these cross above and below. Hiccups, sorry about that. It's happened a lot recently. Anyway, we draw this through straight down, and it should go through this middle point. I notice I didn't draw it perfectly on point G, which might be why it's a little to the left. This is not the most accurate way of measuring this, but it still is perpendicular. We can check that with our protractor. Yes, it's 90 degrees. And we can measure the lengths, and it's going to be, about at that 2 centimeter mark, which is half. Yeah, right about there. So that was question 3. You'll get a mark for drawing the line. You'll get a mark for drawing the edges 2 different ways, and 1 for the bisector. So that is out of 4 marks for question 3. Let's do question 4. I think I have room to the side here, so I'm going to try to do this. It says to draw a line that is 5 centimeters long, and we're going to label it AB. And it says that we're supposed to use a compass to draw its perpendicular bisector. So all you need to do for this is make sure you're greater than half with the length it is here. And we're going to draw a circle on one side from B. So point right on the end, right on B, and then 1 point right on A, and draw the circle. And where those arcs line up, it's going to be 2 points here. And we draw through those, and we end up with a perpendicular bisector. We can check it. Bisectors have to be equidistant to the middle, so 2.5 and 2.5. Perfect. And use our protractor. Is it perpendicular? Yes, it is. It's 90 degrees. So that worked. So that's part A, was to draw this line right here. Part A, you're going to get 4 marks just for drawing it. Part B says we need to pick 3 points along here. So it doesn't matter. I'm going to choose this point up here where it crosses over. I'm going to label it. I'll call it C. I'm going to use this point where it is at the bottom. I'm going to call it D. And I'm going to choose this point way down here, and I'm going to call it E. Okay? And it says that we are to measure the distance from each point. Measure the distance from each of these points to A and B and see if we notice something. So if I look here, A to E, I'll notice that the distance is 5 centimeters. Wow, that was exactly 5 centimeters right there. Okay, so let's draw this in. That was 5 centimeters. Then I'm going to measure from B to E as well. Oh, 5 centimeters. So from either point at the end of segments to any point on the perpendicular bisector, it's going to be an equal length. That's equal to that, right? What about here? AD. Let's make a line segment there. A to D is 3.5. Oops, I moved it. That was 3.5. Guess what? B to D is probably going to be the same. And sure enough, it is. and it's 3.5 centimeters as well. So this is equal to this. Now, as you know, this had a radius that is also this radius. I'm expecting this right here to be 3.5 as well. This here to be 3.5 centimeters. I actually measured it already. So this line here is actually the same as these two. But what you need to know is any point on this perpendicular bisector will be the same distance from here to either end point. So the distance from any point on this bisector to A will be the same as any point on it to B. So that same point, the distance is the same. That's what we've learned here. So drawing the whole thing and then doing 3. So 3 points would be 1 mark, 2 mark, 3 mark, and then the sentence would be 4. So it's another 4 for part B. Question 5 says, find out what happens when you try to draw a perpendicular bisector of a line segment when the distance between the compass and pencil point is A, equal to 1/2 the length of the segment. So let's just draw a segment here. I'm going to keep it small so it all fits here. I'm going to draw a line segment that is 3 centimeters long. I drew it a little too long. 3 centimeters long. Okay, so 1.5 would be right there. That's half of 3. So we're going to set our compass to 1.5. So get this set. 1.5 is right a little bit bigger than that. There we go. 1.5. There we go. What happens? We're going to point on one end, draw our arc, point on the other end. What do we notice? There's no 2 points created here. There's just 1 point. And where do I draw it? Do I draw it right here? Do I draw it right here? Do I draw it right here? Where does it go? Which is the perpendicular bisector? We found out that it's difficult. Why? We only have 1 point of intersection. So there's not 2 dots to combine, right? Up here, we had 2 points to combine and put together. We had 2 points here to put together. Here, we only have 1. We only have 1 point of intersection, so no 2 dots are present to connect. Or points, I should say, are present to connect. So that's the problem when we make it exactly half. Okay, B says less than 1/2 of the line segment. So let's get a line segment and let's say that it is, let's do 6 this time. And we're going to do less than 1/2. So 3 is half. Let's keep it at that, 1.5 centimeters. Let's draw this. And we'll draw this one here. Oop. I need to sharpen the pencil on here. Let's try again. You'll notice, what's the problem? The curves don't intersect. That's the problem. So there aren't dots to combine. In this case, what you need to do is measure from each end. You've noticed 3 is half, so measure to 2. Measure to 2. And then draw from there. Okay? If your compass can't reach, that's what you need to do. And then voila, connect those. Okay? Or stretch out your compass to make sure it's past half. So this was just to emphasize that you need to make sure your compass is more than half the distance to the center, more than that bisector point. Okay? It needs to be further than that in order to get 2 points so you can actually draw it. It's better to extend the compass if you can, because every time you make a measurement, there's room for error and you might be a little bit off. Even in this one right here, if I look at this, the line I drew is actually a little bit left of my 3 centimeter line, and I'm guessing that has to do with these measurements that I did here. Maybe where my pinpoint was a little bit off one way or the other. So simply for each of these sentences that you drew, there is a mark for each of those. In the lesson video for question, there was a similar question to question 8 in it. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail explaining question 8 right now. I'm just going to do it. Go to the lesson video if you'd like to do it. So it says to draw a large triangle PQR. Notice that it's a triangle shape. It doesn't really matter what length you're doing here. I'm going to draw a large triangle. Doesn't matter what type of triangle. It can be any triangle. I'm going to do this triangle right here. Not too large, or else we'll end up off the page. Voila. And we're going to label this PQR. PQR. Triangle done. Next it says to construct the perpendicular bisector of each side. Now, what you know is to make perpendicular bisector of each side is simply just finding the perpendicular bisector of each of these line segments, each of these. So what you can do is choose the longest side and just make sure that your compass is greater than halfway that half distance, okay? And we're just going to draw 3 circles with the centers being each of these points, P, R, and Q. So I'm going to put it right on that corner and I'm going to loop it around. This question, I highly recommend using a sharp pencil. You're going to see a lot more success, things lining up. And be very precise with your corners. Make sure they're right on the corners. Okay. And finally, P. Now, there's 2 points where each of these circles intersect. So, for example, there's this point right here and this point right here where this circle and this circle intersect. You're going to want to combine those to make the perpendicular bisector. Okay, we're going to draw straight through there. This is a perpendicular bisector of the line segment that is P and Q. So PQ, this is its perpendicular bisector, and we know it because the circles that the points we used have their centers of P and Q. Okay, we have some others here. We have right here, this one and this one. This circle has P, this circle has R as centers. So this line that I'm going to draw from this point right here to this point right here is the perpendicular bisector of PR. Okay? And then finally, we have this point right here and this point right here that we have another perpendicular bisector. And I'm just realizing I drew my shape that's going to make this maybe a little bit more confusing because something happened that doesn't always happen. But we're going to draw this here. We have finally our final perpendicular bisector. Now what you're probably going to notice is these perpendicular bisectors all match and meet up right here on point C. They all line up right there, and that just so happens to be on PR, and my guess is because I accidentally drew a right triangle Yeah, just about. Maybe just slightly off, half a degree off. That was not intentional. When you do a right triangle, this point's often, and I think always, ends up on PR. That was unintentional. But what's interesting is the perpendicular bisectors of each line segment that makes a triangle, they actually will all line up at a certain point. And we call that point right there the circumcenter. So C equals circumcenter. Okay? And if you take your compass and you place it on the circumcenter, so right that exact middle point right there, and you line it up with any one of the outside points that we started with that triangle, so R for example, and we draw a circle, you're going to notice something. What do we notice about this circle? Point P, point Q, and point R are all on that. So using the circumcenter, the circumcenter radius is actually going to be it to each of these. So where the bisectors cross is actually a point that would be the center of a circle that would go around the triangle and have each corner of the triangle as part of its circumference. So it would be this circle that goes around like that encapsulates the triangle would be called the circumcircle. So I made a mistake. It said to make it go, the center C and then P, but effectively you drew the same circle. It doesn't matter which one you line it up with because all of them will be on the circumference of that. So this question here, you get 1 mark for each of the bisectors you drew. So each bisector, this one, this one, this one, is 3 marks. So it's out of 3 for the bisectors, perpendicular bisectors. Okay, you get 1 mark for labeling C. And you get 1 mark for drawing a circle that touched each of these corners. So the circumcircle. So question 8 here will be out of 5 marks. So 5 marks for question 8. 2 for question 5 would be 7. And then plus 12 would bring us up to 19 marks. So this question page is out of 19 marks.